on behalf of the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight. Welcome to So You Want to Be the Chief, a podcast for leaders.
It's another great day in the United States of America. I have a friend of mine who retired not too long ago, but he's a retired chief, a command chief, a reservist, I believe, if I remember right. But we struck up a friendship several years ago, and we did some work together, not necessarily physically, but we were together online, and that was a kind of a cool thing. So his name is Jeff Trottier. He is retired. When did you retire, Chief?
I retired October 1st, 2023, so last year.
Last year, okay. So, and as you notice, he's not wearing a beard. So, what's up, Chief? I mean, every retired chief wears a huge old beard for about a year, and then they figure out, oh, you read the book.
I reread the book. I didn't want to be the chief in the exchange or commissary that had a little gruff there that you mentioned in your book.
Yeah. I was with one of them yesterday he came up to me, and one of my proteges, "Hey, Chief, how are you?" And I gave him a hard time. I have to give you a hard time. But, well, interestingly though, now, Chief, what I'm having trouble with is a lot of active duty youngsters wear beards now. And, in my day, that was no way there was just no way we would do that. But I know it's a new Air Force, and I don't know. So you're more up to date with that stuff because it hasn't been that long since you retired, and I retired 22 years ago. So things have changed. But
Yeah.
Anyway, now, first of all, what are you doing? Are you really, no kidding, retired? You're doing nothing?
Well, right now I'm retired from the New York Air National Guard, the 109th Airlift Wing. And for those that don't know, we have the LC-130 Ski Bird. I always want to give a shout out to the Ski Bird. They're the C-130 that has the skis on that we fly to the Arctic and Greenland for training, and then of course the Antarctic. So I'm kind of, no kidding, retired right now, but silly me decided that I wanted to pick up a GS job at the base to be a project manager for a project. So I haven't started that yet, and haven't really had the green light yet. So within the next couple of weeks, I should be back to working full time. But our plan was just to retire, but it just didn't happen because when I went to Iraq, my wife had got 2 cats and Freedom and Liberty, and unfortunately they need some attention, and we haven't been able to travel as much as we'd like. So, but that's the skinny on my retirement.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people ask me, how is retire? How are you doing being retired? And I tell them I didn't retire. I refired. I'm doing something that really, no kidding, I retired from the job so that I can do my work, which is this type of thing, and writing and speaking and all that kind of stuff. So, and I think for those chiefs who are listening, who are considering or about to retire, and please elaborate if you will, Chief, but you got to maintain a purpose after you retire. We're taught, and like I say, that's why I was refired. We go 100 miles an hour for 20, 30 years, and then if you quit, you're liable to just quit literally forever, So I always suggest find something, whether it's another GS job or whatever kind of job, that keeps you going, because otherwise, you got to have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, you're liable to die.
Well, I can't agree a lot more with that because, as you just said, you're going 100 miles an hour, and you land the plane. Next thing you know, you're in reverse thrust. And you're going, whoa, what just happened here? And there is definitely a transition period. So for those chiefs that are going to retire, now I'll say that I retired a little older. I was 61 when I retired from the Air National Guard, and I got an age waiver and all that. So my career was a little backwards. I did my active duty civilian career, and then I got back in the Air Guard. But definitely, if you have a project or some sort of plan out there to keep yourself busy and have a purpose, and I 100% agree with that, make it happen. So, but it could take a while. But I think right now I'm in a good spot, and we're moving forward. So
yeah. Now, are you living in New York? Did you stay up there?
Yeah, my wife and I, we stayed pretty much in our hometown area in upstate New York, in the Adirondack Mountains, a little town called Lake Luzerne, home of Rachel Ray, by the way. And I have two two kids. One's in Arizona, retired Marine. He's got four kids. And I've got a daughter who lives literally 2 miles outside the gate of Hill Air Force Base. So we're lucky when we travel. We get to stay at both Davis Mountain and Hill if we want to. But yeah, but still in New York. It's beautiful up here. In fact, it's kind of cloudy, rainy day today, but that's what happens. So.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I've been up, I think in the outer parts of New York, not New York City, but up north, how you call it, whatever the term you guys use. But I've always wanted to go to the city, to New York City. I've flown over it and all that, and I've always seen it. And I know J-Lo, but I've never been to the city. So one day maybe I can. I'll call you and we'll meet up in Manhattan somewhere.
Sounds good. Excellent.
Now back to being a chief, and I know you read my book, Chief, and we've talked. In fact, I think to some of your former airmen about this. But in reading the book and in your experience, what do you think a chief needs to really, no kidding, focus on, and especially when they begin their tenure as a chief? What's the most important thing you think?
Well, I mean, you certainly read the book as a guide or a baseline, because I'll tell you, I read your book before I became a chief. I did some highlighting in it, and then I read it again yesterday. So let me read that again. And I even highlighted more. But I think really to be a chief, the baseline is one of your quotes in there is, you don't know everything, and seek out individuals that can help mentor you to that next level of responsibility, really. Because there is a lot of responsibility to being a chief. Now, you can go ahead and say you're going to take care of airmen, train airmen, and recognize airmen and all that. But the biggest thing is to start developing yourself, a year or two in advance. I know I took a lot of courses that I didn't need to take, but it set me up for success to help, with that educational piece that I was unfamiliar with. So align yourself with some good chiefs if you can. Go ahead and get some information from them, and kind of, if you want to, shadow them if you really want to. But I'd say seek out a chief that you think is, solid and rock solid and a rock star, and just start getting some information from that person. So, and even outside your unit too, if you've got a friend or somebody that you went to a PME with or anything like that, definitely. That's a start. That's just
as an old chief, I think it's incumbent upon us to go seek the up and coming ones as well, whether it's a senior master sergeant or a master sergeant. I mean, I've got the chief Lugo Santiago, who is my #1 protege. I met him as a staff sergeant, and I've been mentoring him, and we've had a great friendship where we've got a brotherhood now for, gosh, I don't know, 40 years, 35 years, something like that. But when I first saw him, when I first met him, I thought, I immediately, and I think you've had that experience too. I saw him and I said, here's a chief. He may be a staff sergeant right now. It's just he doesn't have all the stripes that he will eventually get. And he went on to be a command chief and all that kind of stuff. So I think it works both ways. Moving up, seek someone, a mentor. Looking down, find those people that need mentoring. And sometimes the tough part, I think, and it's not Lugo, but sometimes it's hard. It's a challenge, I'll say, to find the one that maybe you don't get along with, but there's potential. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know that this person is going to be great, but man, he just we don't really get along, but doesn't matter. I do it for the force. I need to do it for the institution.
Well, a chief long ago, you go to the all calls, enlisted all calls, and one of the Air National Guard command chiefs came in. This was quite a few years ago. Chief Muncie, I think his name is. Somebody said, "Hey, chief, how do I become a chief?" And it stuck with me that do good at what you're doing now, the rest will come. So if you're thinking about being a chief, if you're a senior master sergeant, or even a master sergeant, and you're so focused on being a chief in E9, you may lose sight of the current situation that you're in. And that may cause some, like, hey, your supervisor may say, hey, what's going on here? He or she is just not living up to the potential that they can in this particular position, if you're so focused on becoming a chief or even a senior master sergeant, depending on your situation. But I'll be honest, I never really woke up and said I want to be a command chief or even a chief. I'm a late bloomer in the Air Guard. I joined at age 35, I think, and I was active duty for 4 years. And I was an E4 senior airman up until about age 37, I think, 38. And I just love what I did. So I think if you love what you do and you concentrate on that particular task at hand and get the mission done, people will recognize that and, say, hey, that person, he or she has potential. So that was a piece of advice that I had received years ago. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And the other group of people, as you're mentioning, seek help, mentors and all that, is the commanders, the bosses, the people you work with. And I'm sure the reserve is the same way as it is on active duty. And you know that I taught at the Air Force Academy for almost 20 years. The officers are not officers because we just gave them the commission. 90% of them, at least, I think, earned it. And there's some bright people up there, and they have different experiences than we do. Because I think about, could I have done it? Because I'm writing a book about prior enlisted officers, and as I read their stories, I think, could I have done it? Well, in fact, I intended to do it. I have butter bars somewhere that Lieutenant Hank Emerson gave me because I was going to become an officer. But then, I met Chief John Sterl, and that changed my whole perspective on leading and all that kind of stuff. So I became a chief instead. But our officers, I think we can learn from them as well, if nothing else, how they do things, because we're here to help them to succeed. But if we don't know how they succeed, how are we going to help them to succeed? I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does to me. Now, I will say that you came in to our unit via, at the time, I think COVID was going on, or just after that. And we did a Zoom call like this with our company grade officers. And I'd say probably, I'm guessing here, about 80% of those officers were prior enlisted. But, I think as a chief, one of the things that we sometimes forget is that we should be training and assisting and guiding our company grade officers, captains and below, and a few majors here and there, and and I think they appreciate that. They appreciate the fact that now you have a connection with them, and you can get that mission piece done. Where there may be a gap or whatnot, you can close that gap a little bit. But that is our responsibility as a chief to go ahead and train and assist as best we can. Now, one thing we did in our unit was we have like 5 homegrown, basically PME courses, if you will, or in-house courses that we would have, like a Gettysburg trip or a Saratoga battlefield trip, a Lexington Concord trip with some sort of theme, whether it's communication or something of that nature, and local courses, a leadership development course, airman development courses. But one of the things that I think we did a good job with, and we kept it going, is the combination of combining the enlisted force with the officer corps, that junior officer corps, and you can hear the situation of the concerns from both sides, and officers enlisted do have some similar concerns, and they got to know each other and they made a connection, and at the end of the day, it gets the mission done. So that's what we did, and I believe it's still going today. So,
and sometimes, I guess that's a better word, the officers believe that, and I don't know where they get this necessarily, but they believe that there's a competition between them and us. And I worked hard, and I still do at the Air Force Academy with when I go up there, to remind them that there is no competition. Officers have a different function than enlisted people, and that's just the way the organization is set up. There is no competition that we're better than you. In fact, like you're just alluding to, our responsibility is to help them be better, because if we help them be better, they should, and I think most of the time they do, help us be better. So we're taking care of each other, but a lot of times it's like, there's not this us against you, them situation. And now maybe at the beginning, Chief, maybe when you're a junior enlisted guy, you think that there is, because you're the same age. But as we get older,
Right.
by the time you make chief, you realize, no, I'm trying to help this what is a young whippersnapper, if you remember that term, to become eventually become a general, and how is he going to be? How is she going to be? How is she going to treat us as enlisted people is going to be based on how we treat her when we're staff sergeants, when they're lieutenants.
Yeah, and you probably heard the term and maybe even said, hey, a junior officer, go find yourself a senior enlisted a person, an airman or whoever, and align yourself with them and get to know them and see what they can do to help mentor you. And the Navy, I think, does it really well from what I understand. So, but yeah, definitely we're a team. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I look at it too with the total force integration, the TFI. When you talk about active duty, guard, and reserve, I always felt that there wasn't enough PME slots for the reservists and the guardsmen, but I was fortunate enough to get a few of those guard slots at like the Chief Leadership Course and the Senior NCO Academy and things like that. And I tell you, those relationships with active duty personnel, just in general, you talk about a connection and making things better. Work.
Yeah.
I'm still great friends with some chiefs that are retired now today that were active duty. So it's all about connection and all.
And one of the lessons you mentioned is you don't know everything. What's interesting when I go up to the hill, Chief, is, man, do these youngsters know stuff? They're amazing, man. And I'm not a what do you call it, a techie by any means, but I try to stay up with stuff because I enjoy it. I like to learn and all that, and I do a lot of it with like this type of online work. But those youngsters they're amazing, man. Every single one of them. They talk about stuff that you and I probably dreamed of when we were young, and now no big deal. I mean, iPhones, phones, watches, Chat GPT, all of that kind of stuff. I was just talking to a group yesterday, and reminding them, and no kidding, this is true. I'm not blowing smoke, but I never cheated in school. I never thought about it, and now I don't have I'm not smart enough, but they have all kinds of ways. It's like every time you look around, you turn around, you find that there's another tool that might help them cheat. Well, and the character part is don't, because it's not worth it in the end and all that. But you and I have been through all that already. They're just starting, and sometimes they buy into it, and sometimes they don't. But nonetheless, they are smart, man. We can learn a lot from the folks that we lead.
What was one of the terms in your book? Get out of the way.
Yeah.
Get out.
That's hard. Though that's hard because and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but in my experience, the chief was expected to know everything. You go to the chief for the answers. And there's a term of vulnerability, authenticity, some of these buzzwords that are floating all over the place. But those are true and they're real, I think, that and that's in that lesson, if you think you know everything, you're really stupid because you know nothing. So you got to be open to listening to, and your eyes and your ears got to be open all the time, because they say stuff that'll go past you, pretty quickly. It's like, did he say that? What does that mean? That happened to me just a few minutes ago. I was online with someone and what is that word? I'd never heard of it. To them, it's no big deal. They use it all the time.
Yeah. Well, just some civilian experience with that is I was a local town judge in the town that I lived in a little town of Hadley for 18 years. And, it was an elected position and I enjoyed it. And, I wasn't in the Guard at the time. Portion of it I was. Well, anyway, the more I was in the system, or at least being a local town judge, misdemeanors and below, you're 10, 11, 12. And then I'm like, man, the deeper you get into the law, the less you know. And I'm like, man, there's just things I just don't know with respect to that. And I'm not saying that I think the deeper you get into something, the more you need kind of assistance and guidance to know more. So I kind of felt like the longer I was in, the less I knew about like the deep part of it. So that's just an experience that I had. So,
and I think it's a good way to develop a relationship and I say plead ignorance, but I didn't really plead ignorance. I was ignorant. when you ask a youngster, tell me about that. What is that? Because I see them, their eyes light up. Oh, wow, the chief is wanting me to teach him. Wow, that's pretty cool. And sure, and no kidding, I am ignorant. I have no idea what we're talking about. So there's some value in that. Now,
I think
go ahead.
no, there real quick. There was one story when General Goldfein was out in the field, and here's a 4-star general, and an A1C or a senior airman was actually teaching him how to do something, and you're like, wow, we have some smart airmen. We do. We have really, really smart airmen. They're educated. They do want to come in and do a good job, and we sometimes have to admit that, you know what, we can learn too. I mean, if you stop learning, then I think it's time to retire. So
yeah, and you're right, and go learn something else. Any heroes growing up, Chief? Was there a hero in your life, a chief in your life that you said, man, I want to be like that guy, other than me?
Well, you spoiled it now. I mean, well, first of all, I think I want to thank my mom for just kicking my butt and saying, get after it, go. And then, of course, my wife's kind of the same way. She's been a rock star. She's been with me for, over 40 years on this journey. There was, when I first got back into the Guard, there was a senior master sergeant. I worked intel, and I'm like, wow, look at all those stripes. And here I am, 35 years old, right? 36 years old. I'm like, wow, look at all those stripes. I'll never be a senior master sergeant. But I just looked at that kind of situation and said, someday I can be like that. Like I said, I didn't dream of being a chief or a command chief, let alone, I say let alone a command chief, but like a senior master sergeant. So that kind of put a spark in me to like do well. But I've always admired like the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, those positions. I think when I joined the Guard or the active duty in 1980, I wanted to be the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. That was a goal of mine. Of course, the goal of mine was to go to the Air Force Academy, and that didn't happen, and that's okay. But there were a lot of chiefs that I looked at. This guy wasn't a chief, but a senior master sergeant. But they're out there. They're out there. There's quite a few of them. I know when I've gone to some of these tech schools and all, I really, really you're kind of hung with the ones that you can learn from. So now, I don't know if you know Kevin Osby, Chief Osby. He just retired Senior Enlisted Leader for AAFES. His picture was up in AAFES all the time, but he and I had a good relationship where we would kind of ping things off each other. I will say that our core group of command chiefs that I went to school with, the Air Guard has its own command chief school, and we're on WhatsApp, and we kind of mentor each other. There's like 30 of us, so we kind of ping each other. So that was a collaborative effort that I think if a chief out there wants to, when they go to their chief school, just be part of that to kind of learn from each other. And so.
Yeah. And back in the day, our perspective was that your job, regardless of where you are, is to work yourself. Your responsibility is to work yourself out of a job. Teach that next person your job so you can go do some, another one and expand and all that kind of stuff. And that way I think the Corps was pretty strong that everybody was teaching everybody what they knew and learning at the same time. So I don't know that happens anymore. I hope that it does. And if it doesn't, it should, I think we should go back to it.
Well, my experience as an operations group superintendent, when I went from Intel to OG chief, and I kind of sat in both seats for 2 years or so. It was relatively new in the Guard to be a senior enlisted leader in a group, and then become a chief. And to be a chief in the intel career field it's not unheard of. It's just hard to do in the Guard because the rank caps out at senior master sergeant. But my point is there was some conversion period there, and what I did toward the end of that time, I was a group superintendent about 5 years. I started looking at senior master sergeants and talking to the current chiefs that were in the operations group. I said, okay, who's our next chiefs? Let's start talking about our next chiefs, and let's make sure that they've got the PME. they've got the courses, they got everything they need to go ahead and be able to pin on chief if that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Now, when I became command chief, I think right out of the gate, the first thing I did is I went to the commander and said, "Sir, you're the boss," which we all know commander's the boss. We're not as my OG commander said, I'm not the E9 commander. I'm not the chief commander, you know. And I'm like, "Yes, sir, you've got the responsibility. You're the commander, you're the one that makes the decisions. I'm here to help and guide and provide any input that I can."
Right.
But one thing I did there that I thought other units could or can do, or maybe they do, is I invited the group superintendents to all the big meetings. It was kind of lonely there for a while with the command chief at the meetings with all these officers, the commanders of maintenance group, mission support group, medical group, and operations group, and no senior enlisted leader next to them by their side. And then we brought that in. So the transition to whoever may become a command chief at the time, and I know I'm kind of getting my head of myself a little bit because I know we're talking about chief, but start going to some of those high level meetings and start learning, like, what are the issues and concerns within the wing, because your issues and concerns in your group are very, very similar to those of another group. So
Yeah.
Start looking at that as well. And it went well. I started training my replacement day one. And I know that sounds kind of you know, forthcoming, which you have a chapter in your book on, you know, plan ahead. And that, I think that helps not just the individual, but also the wing.
Chief, I just noticed your shirt. You have an emblem there that looks familiar. Let me see if I get out of camera. Hold on a second. Can you see it? I have one.
There's the Minuteman. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one. I don't. This was given to me by the senior NCO folks over at Buckley, the Colorado A&G top three, yeah, in 2006. So,
Awesome.
so anyway, if anybody wants to invite me to speak or to, you know, sometimes I'm just, what do they call it, candy, you know, but that's okay. I'm willing to go. So. It's been good. Thank you for taking the time, Chief. I don't know what you were planning to do today. Now, do they have maple syrup and all that up there? You know, that's what we think about. A little bit.
Well, it's usually in the spring. That's going to pass, you know, after the thaw. But yes, maple syrup it is. So.
Okay. All right. Or you're going to go cut some trees. I know that's what you all do up there. But anyway, thank you for taking the time, and thanks for your friendship. I hope that we can continue this on until we can't even think anymore. But maybe we'll see each other. If you said you want to come to the Air Force Academy, you're welcome to come to the Air Force Academy. I'll have coffee with you. I'll take you to coffee over there or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Excellent. Yeah, I appreciate it. And, you know, for the Chiefs wanting to be Chiefs, don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. And I think that's probably what helped myself throughout my career. But, you know, good luck to everybody. Reach out if you want to. And God bless.
God bless you, Chief. Thank you.